From Australia, this is the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
And it's Graham VK4 Baker with the national news for week commencing June 19, 2022. 2 Brits arrested in Albania as police accuse them of spying after seizing radio gear. 2 Britons were quizzed on allegations of espionage by officers at Tirana International Airport in Albania after police discovered sophisticated Kenwood radios in their luggage. They told the officials they were IT engineers who were carrying the amateur gear to indulge in their hobby whilst on holiday in Albania. One suspect was registered as using a ham radio in the Tirana region on online profiles, which also say he specialises in electronic warfare. A source said it's highly unusual to be carrying this sort of equipment, and even more strange for someone to be stopped and accused of being a covert agent. The 2 Britons were held on May 30 and then allowed to return to the UK. However, they remain under investigation, police say. Their Kenwood was sent to the Albanian Criminal Laboratory for further examination. Jason, VK2 LAW, joins us now with much more international news here on VK1 WIA.
Hello. Commencing international news from Region 1, ITU's ham radio station celebrates 60 years on air. United Nations Specialised Agency for Information and Communication Technologies owns and operates 4 Uniform 1 India Tango uniform at the headquarters of the International Telecommunications Union. It started broadcasting on the 10th of June 1962 and was officially inaugurated the following month by the UN Secretary-General, UTANT, and ITU Secretary-General Gerald Gross, himself a ham radio enthusiast, call-sign Whiskey 3 Golf Golf. From its long-time home on the 5th floor of the Varembe building in Geneva's International District, this unique broadcasting outlet still today serves as a model of the highest standards of amateur radio station operation everywhere. 4U1ITU's first contact, or QSO, was made with German station Delta Lima 4 Victor Kilo. Further QSOs followed, amounting to over 1,300 contacts worldwide in the first 24 hours. In the 6 decades since, ITU's radio station has made over 1 million contacts using CW, SSB and digital operational modes with radio amateurs around the world. Use it or lose it, Begora. The Irish Radio Transmitters Society say it's not too often these days to hear our beautiful native Irish language spoken on amateur radio. As the newly appointed Irish language officer on the IRTS committee, Tony, Echo India 5 Echo Mike, would like to launch a pilot project, initially in the Dublin area, to promote the Irish language. The plan is to start a net on the Kipua 2-metre repeater, catering for all levels of fluency. If this proves a success, it's planned to expand it onto HF so the world can listen. As they say in rugby parlance, use it or lose it. In news from Region 2, the Federal Communications Commission is proposing to fine an amateur radio operator for alleged interference with firefighting efforts in Idaho last year. It said Jason Frawley, Whiskey Alpha 7 Charlie Quebec, apparently interfered with radio communications that were guiding fire suppression aircraft working the Johnson Fire near Elk River. Frawley later told the FCC he was only trying to help. The $34,000 fine would be the largest of its kind, the Commission said in issuing its notice of apparent liability. All 4 commissioners approved the NAL. Frawley now has the opportunity to respond, and the FCC would then consider final action. Commenting on the notice, Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel wrote, "You can't interfere with public safety communications, full stop. So today we propose the largest fine of its type for this interference that put fire suppression and public safety itself at risk." The Commission says Frawley, the owner of Leader Communications, licensee of 8 microwave licences and 1 business licence, told the FCC he did not mean harm and instead meant to help the firefighters by providing with details regarding Elk Butte. In news from Region 3, amateur radio activists who were members of the ORARI, the Indonesian Amateur Radio Organisation, met at the Indonesian Home Brewers Club event at South Jakarta Sunday, June 5. Home brew is the activity of radio amateurs who assemble home devices to channel a hobby in the field of radio engineering. This event is a vehicle for education and trials of radio devices. It's an honour for those who can present their work in this performance. The event, titled Friendly in the Air, Familiar on the Ground, was attended by 400 members of ORARI, the SAR team and electronics observers. For VK1 WIA National News, in Sydney I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
VK1 WIA.
Why did sunspots disappear for 70 years? EOS reports 5 decades of data revealed a star undergoing a pause in magnetic activity similar to what the Sun experienced almost 400 years ago. Every 11 years, the number of spots dotting the surface of the Sun increases and decreases like clockwork. Astronomers have been tracking the 11-year sunspot cycle for more than 400 years, using it to better understand the chaotic magnetic field the Sun puts out. The current solar cycle, number 25, started in 2019. The timing of the solar cycle is remarkably consistent. Sunspot numbers rise and fall, except for that time before they disappeared and weren't seen again for 70 years. That period of time from 1645 to 1715 is known as the Maunder Minimum, named after 19th century British astronomers Edward and Annie Maunder. Astronomers still don't understand why the Sun ceased making sunspots for 70 years, but a new analysis of more than 5 decades of measurements of nearby stars has identified one that might be undergoing its own Maunder-like minimum. The star, HD 166620, could help scientists understand this mysteriously quiescent period of the Sun's history and unlock clues about how the solar dynamo functions. We can't build a time machine and go back to the Maunder minimum and study the Sun as it was, said Jason Wright, an astronomer at Pennsylvania State University and co-author on the new analysis. But we can find an analogue and study its Maunder minimum.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now operational news with Felix, VK4FUQ.
Hello there. WIA VHF UHF Winter Field Day next weekend. 0200 hours UTC Saturday 25 June through 0159 hours UTC Sunday 26 June. IAR UHF World Championship next contest is July 9 and 10. WIA Trans-Tasman Low Band Contest 16 July. The Trans-Tasman Contest, held on the third weekend in July, aims to encourage low band activity between VK and ZL. RSG VIA Contest is July 30-31. WIA RD or Remembrance Day Contest Saturday-Sunday August 13-14. Alara Contest August 27-28. WIA NZAAT Oceania Contest. Phone first full weekend in October, 0600 hours UTC Saturday to 0600 hours UTC Sunday. CW. Second full weekend in October, 0600 hours UTC Saturday to 0600 hours UTC Sunday. Log deadline for all logs 31 October. WIA VHF UHF Winter Field Day next weekend.
This is Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, manager of the VHF UHF Field Days. As most of you know, the VHF UHF Field Days are held 3 times a year, not twice, in summer, winter and spring. Here we are, it's the 19th of June. The winter solstice arrives on Tuesday next, and the winter VHF UHF Field Day is on next weekend. The Field Day page on the WIA website has been updated, but the rules are the same as those for previous events. However, I do have some news for all you Field Day tragics. Following the passing of Mike VK3AVV in January, there has been somewhat of a hiatus regarding future support for his brilliant VKCL logging software, as well as the log checking software he developed and used to generate the results of each VHF-UHF field day event. In the meantime, Doug, VK4ADC, on his own initiative, embarked recently on developing a new contest logger, which he has titled Yet Another Contest Logger, YACL. Doug has launched it for contesters to try out for the winter event next weekend. You can download it from the internet address in the text version of this broadcast. While YACL has been developed to have the familiar look and feel of VKCL, Doug says the new logger employs a few different design principles that should make it even more flexible. The on-screen format is based on VKCL, but it's vastly different inside, Doug says, having been written from scratch in a different programming language. It has an inbuilt interface to WSJ-TX for direct logging of digital QSOs and includes OmniRig support for 2 radios. Partial microwave transverter support is also incorporated, says Doug. While YACL development is continuing, it can be used for the winter VHF-UHF field day, as those rules have already been transformed into a configuration file with more Australian contests to be supported in the future. YACL follows the well-known N1MM Plus logger principle, where contests are defined in an external file to match the published rules. With rule changes, it only needs a new text file rather than a rewrite of the software. Doug is also working on log checking software that is important to providing fully checked and ranked results. If you plan to give YACL a go, remember to jump online and recheck immediately before the winter field day next weekend to ensure that you have the absolutely latest version with fewer bugs. Wait, let's just call them anomalies. Or you can stick with VKCL for the time being. Either way, submit your logs to the WIA website log uploader as usual. The link is on the VHF-UHF Field Days webpage. Best wishes for the contest to one and all. This has been Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, for VK1WIA News.
DX window. Jan Mayen, JX. Helge, LB4MI is QRV as JX/LB4MI until early October. Activities in his spare time on 20 and 17 metres using SSB. QSL to home call LB4MI. Indonesia. 7B2C, 7B2E, 7B2T, 7B2H and 7B2O are QRV until the end of October to celebrate the Japanese Hindu Shinto temple that was built in 1475. Activities on 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metres using SSB and FT8. QSL via operator's instructions. Gentlemen, start your engines. Friends, PC2F will be active as PF01 Max until the 20th of November over the 22 Grand Prix weekends of this year's FIA Formula 1 World Championship. For PF01 Max, your QSL via PC2F, either direct, via the Bureau, Logbook of the World or eQSL. BBC Centenary Special Event GB100 BBC. Members of the BBC's Radio Club, the London BBC Radio Group, have been granted an exceptional all-year special event call sign to help celebrate the BBC's centenary year. Ofcom will permit GB100 BBC to operate throughout the year from the headquarters station in Broadcasting House, London. However, GB100 BBC has also been operating from Northern Ireland. BBC News reported on the station in Northern Ireland commemorating the centenary of the BBC, where 2 BBC News readers, Radio Ulster's Keith Burnside, GI4IYO and Radio 4's Jim Lee, G4AEH, got on the handwave band from Broadcasting House in Belfast from the BBC's main transmission at Divis Mountain near Belfast. In Ingham, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ, and I'll leave you this week with Shire's contest news and contest manager Diane, VK4DI.
Last weekend saw the bands light up for the VK Shires contest, with a return to pre-COVID rules, as well as the inclusions of a 4-hour rework block, rover category and 160 metres. Bill and I decided to run a multi-two station from our shack as an excuse to check the upgrades and alterations we've made in the past year or so. Activity seemed good from our location, although some operators have said that they didn't have much propagation to anywhere. The sunspot numbers weren't exceptional. There were a number of newbies to contesting, which was fantastic to see. Quite a good number of logs have been received, but there are plenty out there who haven't done so yet. Please submit your log. The amount of QSOs isn't important. It's more about having some fun and seeing if you can get a personal best for your own satisfaction. Thanks to Mark Hillman, VK3OHM, we had an updated Shires Excel spreadsheet for the Shires and also a new DB3 file of Shires for those still using VK Contest Log. Also a very huge thank you to Alan, VK4SN, who has been assisting me with learning to use the VK Log Checker software and the UDC he wrote for the N1MM contest software. All logs must be submitted in Cabrillo format to www.vklogchecker.com. Once uploaded, you will receive an automated reply. If you don't receive an email, first check the logs received on the VK Logger website. Your call sign will be displayed after a successful submission. If it is not shown, then email vkshires@wia.org.au and I will follow up as soon as possible. I'm happy to receive queries regarding log submissions, etc., so please feel free to contact me via the same email address. I will respond as soon as I can. This is Diane, VK4DI, VK Shires Contest Manager.
Good morning. This is Kevin, VK4UH from the Redcliffe Radio Club, and I'm the Contest Manager for the Harry Angel 80 metre sprint. As I'm talking this morning, I've got my cap in my hands and I'm here to offer some serious apologies. The contest this year was held on the 7th of May and that was its 23rd year. Now, we anticipated this year that we might have some issues with log submissions. In particular, we held concerns that we might not capture log entries that were being sent directly from within the VKCL contest logging software rather than through our own Redcliffe Club email contest server. In fact, we'd already put in place a contingency to help forward on those logs if that had occurred. What we'd not anticipated, however, were problems within our own server. Now, the server was set up to automatically forward all contest entry logs to both of the contest managers and to a safety net third person. And we applied what we thought was all due diligence and had sent through several dummy logs to the contest address, all of which came through okay. So the contest came and went, and we immediately started to receive the log entries as we expected, and all the logs that we did receive were confirmed by an email from the managers. What we didn't know was that for reasons best known to itself, the server had decided not to forward a small number of received logs to either manager and instead had put them in a spam file. We've since identified several logs that met this fate, and sadly, of course, any follow-up messages or emails that came from the same centres had been treated in the same way. So after the closing date, all the logs were cross-checked and collated independently by the two managers and then compared, and we posted the final results earlier this week on the WIA contest page. It was not until this point that we became aware that we had a problem and that a small number of entries, some with very high scores, had not been captured at all. Not surprisingly, very soon after that, we received a number of complaints for some justifiably aggrieved contesters, and complaints for which we are very grateful. Now, our immediate response was to suspend the reporting process, and we searched for an explanation on all of the missing log files. We extended the closing date by a further 2 weeks and put out a call to any participants not in receipt of a confirmation email to resubmit their logs. So our intention now is to amend the log results as we receive any missing files and republish the final results on the Harry Angel contest page after the new closing date has passed. So we ask everyone who entered the Harry Angel this year to check the updated provisional result files on the contest webpage and confirm that your log has been captured. And if it's not there, contact us straight away. Every log that we have already appears there. I want to offer our sincere apologies to all the participants whose logs we missed, and I want to apologise as well to everyone whose position in the league table has had to be changed. But we did have to be fair to everyone. We also wish to give our undertaking to revise the entire log submission process before the 2023 contest, and by that time we intend to have a 100% reliable, fully automated submission and cross-checking system in place. The problem we faced was totally beyond our control, entirely unforeseen, and was not recognised until the results were already published. We can only apologise again and thank all those who have been affected for their forbearance. This is Kevin, VK4UH, Contest Manager for the Harry Angels Sprint.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now, special interest group news with Cole, VK3GTV.
Hello, first up, Worldwide Special Interest Group Amateur TV. Every pixel tells a story. 10 seconds for amateur radio television in the age of TikTok. Polish hams go with the times and explore new ways to get their message across to potential new licensees. The Polish Amateur Radio Union, PZK, writes, "Let's create a short film together. In no more than 10 seconds, finish the sentence in front of the camera. Why is it worth becoming a walkie-talkie user?" PZK will assemble a movie that will help promote the amateur radio passion. There are many reasons why it's worth becoming a ham. PZK are curious what the most important is for you. PZK asks to send in a video file without editing, filters, additional subtitles, ideally in horizontal polarization, but vertical format will also be accepted. They said that they look forward to hearing and seeing the results, a great idea and one which societies worldwide could easily piggyback on. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Females in Radio, YL meeting in Finland. Turku welcomes Scandinavia's YL radio amateurs, SYLRA, along with their handbag carriers and friends, to hold the Silra meeting in Turku, Finland, from the 18th to the 21st of August. The event is open to all YLs and their companions, and they're invited not only to the workshops, but also to enjoy Turku tourism and culinary delights. After the actual meeting, there'll be a YL gathering at Katampa Castle Island. See more and sign up at the meeting's website at oh.syrla.is. Oh, and Turku is a city on the southwest coast of Finland, straddling the Ora River. Dating from the 13th century, it's known for Turku Castle, a medieval fortress with a history museum perched at the river mouth. Worldwide Special Interest Group news and adventure groups. Higher than a summit, this story kinda falls into real adventure group news. An imaginative leap, literally. It isn't always easy for new operators to take that big leap into HF operations. From our friends at Amateur Radio Newsline, K9AWM Andy Morrison tells us about one ham in Indiana who took that leap.
Carlos Felix, KD9OLN, has spent 12 years as a skydiver in Indiana and 3 of those years as a skydiving ham on the air. He started jumping from a plane holding an HT, making 2-meter activations, and progressed later to a small mobile rig with more power. This year, however, Carlos landed, or rather he leaped, into operating parachute mobile on 10 meters, specifically on 28.419 megahertz. He said his first attempt last month didn't work out because of a damaged feed line. Carlos more than made up for it on Friday, June 3rd, by jumping twice from 13,000 feet, calling CQ Parachute Mobile. Among those answering his call was someone taking a big leap of their own while keeping both feet on the ground. A technician class operator making a first-time contact on HF. Carlos said that's the whole point. He chose the 10-meter band to give technicians a taste of HF and encourage them to go forward to the next level. Many of his other HF jumps have used frequencies on 20 meters where technicians have no privileges. He said he couldn't do it without the support of the Toads and Ham Radio Clubhouse Discord groups who helped coordinate and hold the frequency for him. It also helps that Carlos is a skydiving instructor and is qualified to teach tandem and accelerated free fall. Mainly, though, he is just a ham taking a leap of faith so that others will too. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Andy Morrison, K9AWM.
Carlos later told AR Newsline he logged a total of 9 QSOs during his June 3rd jump. Thanks for the report, Andy. On to Worldwide Special Interest Group's final frontier, the checks in the mail, or in this case, in space. A new Czech satellite, their 11th in a row, was placed into orbit on the evening of May 25th following the launch by Falcon 9 rocket from Florida. Planetum 1 transmits as OK0PLA in the 2-meter and 70-centimeter bands with CW and GFSK. The control center is the planetarium in the capital city of Prague. The Hubble telescope has broken its own record, detecting an individual star 12.9 billion light-years away. The very Lord of the Rings-sounding star, Earendel, existed when the universe was just 900 million years old, around the same time as the Milky Way started to form. It's only visible due to gravitational lensing. As we made mention of last week in this bulletin, you'll be aware that FunCube 1 has been transmitting a special fitter message to commemorate Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee earlier this month. Everyone who receives this message and uploads it to the data warehouse using the dashboard can generate a certificate to remember this historic event. The special message includes a link to a website that has full instructions. It's intended to keep this message active until the end of June. Operators may have noticed that the spacecraft is now in high-power telemetry mode when in the sunlight, and the high-power telemetry setting will assist listeners to decode the data more easily. The information you are providing is invaluable to the FunCube team and will greatly assist in managing the spacecraft through its middle age after more than 8 years in space. Back on terra firma, it's Worldwide Special Interest Group's YOTA, Youngsters on the Air. With the latest YOTA news, it's over to Alec, VK2APC.
Thank you, Cole. An ARRL Youth Outreach Forum at Dayton Hamvention highlighted resources and ideas for attracting and developing young hams and is available on YouTube for all of us to watch. ARRL Education and Learning Manager Steve Goodgame, Kilo 5 Alpha, Tango Alpha, led the crowd of attendees through a highly interactive session discussing strategies, tools, and reasons for engaging we youth. Centered around the theme of how and why to engage youth in amateur radio, forum attendees participated in discussion groups and shared their findings throughout the forum. The entire presentation was recorded by Josh, Kilo India 6, November Alpha Zulu. Please watch the Amateur Radio Youth Outreach, the Why and How, ARRL Education and Learning. The link is in this week's text edition of the WIA National News. For VK1 WIA National News, I'm Alec, VK2 APC in Sydney. Now back over to you, Cole.
Thanks, Alec. And from youth to those of us who've been around a tad longer, it's Worldwide Special Interest Group's Radio Amateur Oldtimers. Quarter Century Wireless Association Incorporated, QCWA, provides donation to support ARIS. Amateur radio on the International Space Station, ARIS USA, is very pleased to announce that the Quarter Century Wireless Association has made a highly notable contribution of $4,500 to support the ARIS program. QCWA President Ken Olkey, VE6AFO, presented the generous gift to ARIS USA at Hamvention during the ARIS Forum. ARIS is the acronym for Amateur Radio on the International Space Station. Ken hopes the funding will catalyse individuals and other groups around the globe to follow suit and contribute to ARIS. For WIA National News, I'm Cole, VK3GTV.
Social scene. In VK6, Perth Tech happens October 21 through 23. In VK7, the Maina Ham Fest, Saturday, November 19. VK3, Rosebud Radio Fest, November 20. And in 2023, Alara Meet 2023 happens in November, Saturday the 4th, Sunday the 5th in Hobart. Alara Meet 2023. Now till next we meet, I'm Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
We're coming down from a solar storm that sideswiped Earth, and some new big flare players are keeping us on our toes. Those stories and more in the news this week. This space weather forecast is sponsored in part by Millersville University. Come get certified in broadcast space weather. Visit millersville.edu/SWEN. Space weather this week is definitely turning on the eye candy. We used to have a spotless sun about a week ago, but my goodness, look how things have changed. There are no less than 8 active regions on the Earth-facing disk. In fact, back on the 13th, we had a massive solar storm launch from region 3030 and 3032. This launched a beautiful solar storm that had a gorgeous signature in coronagraphs, but sadly, this solar storm went pretty much to the east of Earth, and it only sideswiped us, which bumped us up to storm levels. It was enough to do that, but it wasn't the long-lasting storm we were hoping for. Things are already beginning to calm down, and on top of that, we've got a little bit of fast solar wind from the coronal hole that's been rotating in through the Earth strike zone, but that's also going to calm down in the next day or two, and things are going to quiet down, at least on the solar storm front. Meanwhile, we do have multiple big flare players, including region 3036, 3037, and then of course 3030. These are all M flare players, and they've actually given us about a 10% chance of an X-class flare, so we're definitely watching these as they continue to give us small radio blackouts and things of that nature. We also have potential for radiation storms, but that has also kind of died down and will continue to be a low-level threat over the next few days. Now, as we switch to our far-sighted monitor, this is stereo A, and it's looking at the sun just a little bit from the side. You can see back on the 13th, all of those big regions kind of in the middle of the sun, whoosh, do you see that big brightening and then kind of like a release? That was the big solar storm that was launched to the east of Earth. It was a massive solar storm, and that basically quieted down all of these regions. We've been getting a few big flares from there, but not really anything as substantial when it comes to solar storms. However, Earth-directed solar storms are still on the menu. On top of that, as we look east of those big regions, you can see a few more smaller regions. These are also solar storm players, at least one or two of them are, and they're kind of giving us little things here and there. On top of that, we've got a few regions on the sun's far side that we can't see that we are going to be rotating into stereo's view in a few days. Those have also been firing some solar storms, including one really big one. So we're definitely interested in seeing what regions, what they'll look like when they enter into stereo's view. Meanwhile, as we continue looking at the disk, you can tell that the solar flux is definitely up compared to what it was last week. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders definitely enjoy the radio propagation on Earth's day side. The radio blackouts will continue, but radio propagation should stay in the good range. Switching to our moon, we are now passing out of the full moon phase on our way to a third quarter, and by the 21st, the moon will still be about 50% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky, you're going to have this bright companion, so you're going to need to check your local rise and set times. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are coming down from that side-swiping solar storm that's then been followed by some fast solar wind. And as that continues to calm down, it's still giving us a little bit of unsettled conditions. In fact, at high latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled conditions, but we have up to about a 30% chance of a major storm. And this is going to storm over the next couple days before things begin to slowly settle down. And in fact, fact, as we move into the early part of next week, we still could see about 20 or 15% chance of active conditions, because things are just going to continue to be unsettled with these small pockets of fast solar wind we're seeing here and there. Now, mid-latitudes, we're also expecting unsettled conditions, but we only have about a 20% chance of active conditions over the next day or so, and then things should really begin to calm down and settle down. And sadly, we don't have any other solar storms en route to Earth, so we're just going to have to wait until a new one is launched. Switching to our solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, believe it or not, we do have 8 active regions on the Earth-facing disk right now, with several of them being big flare players. So we have things in the yellow when it comes to big flares and radio blackouts. In fact, NOAA's giving us about a 30% chance of M-class flares, and that's going to be a slightly decreasing risk as time goes on, but we still have about a 10% chance of X-class flares, and we're going to be dealing with that risk for a little while until region 3031 rotates off of the sun's west limb. So radio blackouts are definitely on the menu. You GPS users, you're going to need to continue to stay vigilant on Earth's day side, and especially near dawn and dusk. The nice thing is that solar flux is back up into the mid 100s. We're sitting almost at 150 right now, when flux should continue to stay that level easily over this next week. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, that skywave propagation on Earth's day side is going to stay in the good range for you. So this is good news. Now, as we take a look at the radiation storm predictions, right now we are sitting at a slightly elevated level. It's not really much to worry about, but I thought I'd put it up there just to let you know. And we do have an additional risk of an S1 storm of about 10%, and mainly that's due to region 3036, 3031, a couple of the 3030. There's a couple flare players on the disk right now that could give us some more radiation storms here, but that should just last over the next couple days before things kind of calm down a little bit. We could drop this to about a 5% chance of a radiation storm starting around the weekend, and things will continue to settle down after that. So you frequent flyers, just be aware that it's a little bit dicey right now. Not a big deal. Wouldn't worry about it too much, and then things should go back to normal. So the space weather this week has definitely been bumping up the activity level. We are coming down from that side-swiping solar storm that passed by just the last day or two. It did bump us up to storm levels and gave us a little bit of aurora, but not all that much. And now we're kind of dealing with the wake and the fast solar wind that's coming after that. If you're an aurora photographer at high latitudes, you know you still could get some shows over the next few days before things kind of settle down a little bit. If you're at mid-latitudes, though, well, you know, you're probably going to have to sit this one out. And, you know, the nice thing is that we do still have a lot of solar storm players on the Earth-facing disk, and even more are going to be rotating into view over this next week. So just keep your fingers crossed that one of them launches an Earth-directed solar storm that could actually hit us instead of miss us this time. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, you know, with all of these M-flare players on the Earth-facing disk, radio blackouts are still on the menu, but it does at least mean that solar flux is boosted well into the triple digits. We do have good radio propagation on Earth's day side, and these conditions are going to continue. You're just going to have to deal with a bit of noise on the bands. Sorry about that, but that's just the way it is right now, especially on Earth's day side. And now you GPS users, well, you know, we're coming down from a solar storm that could have been a lot worse. So, you know, radio propagation on Earth's night side shouldn't be too bad. We don't have a lot of aurora to report, so that's good news, and we're not really worried about the GPS reception there. Just the issue with dawn and dusk, that's probably the biggest place to stay vigilant right now, because we do still have the chance for radio blackouts, and that always causes issues for GPS reception. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.